We are live now. We are live on Facebook. Yes. We are live now. Just a minute. So, okay, good. Okay, we are good to go now. This is to welcome all of you. Good evening, all our viewers. It's really, I'm humbled, I'm happy to see you once again. And so much greetings this new year. And just to wish you a happy new year and prosperous 2022. Last year, you really supported us, and I know many lives were changed and were transformed. This is a new year that we are expecting much more to happen, and we are trusting God for lives to be transformed. It's a pleasure once again to host you on SADREF Africa platform. And this is where we believe that broken crayons still color, because you can be crushed, broken for so many reasons, but we believe that your purpose still stands. Welcome to our segment. This segment, we call it Brighter Days segment, that comes to us every last Friday of the month. And what we try to do is to cover different relevant topics based on real and authentic stories. And this is for the reasons to create awareness, to give hope, and also transform lives. Remember, we are live on SADREF Africa Facebook page. So as you are joining us, kindly feel free to host these on watch parties. You can share on your timeline, and also invite someone to this conversation by sharing the Facebook page. In case you want to know and understand about what SADREF Africa does, kindly visit our website, and that is www.sadref.com, and also our Facebook page, that is SADREF Africa, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that is SADREF Africa. I take this opportunity to invite all the viewers who are joining us today. And what I say, you are part of this raw and candid conversation. So kindly engage us by going to the chat box, put your questions. If you have any comments, if you have any experience, thoughts, concerns, kindly put it there. We shall be sampling and react to them as we proceed with the conversation. So karibuni sana, welcome once again as we start off. So to our discussion today, and I will start from a survey that I came across. When you're dating someone new, the romance and excitement of the honeymoon phase can blind you, and you may not be aware of the warning signs. Red flags can, like constant put downs, can signal a kind of emotional abuse, which is relatively common. In a 2011 survey by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, about 47.1% of women and 46.5% of men said they had experienced some form of psychological aggression in a relationship. It can help to know which red flags to look out for so that you can proceed with caution or cut things off if necessary. My name is Jenny Washira, and I am your host today. Today we are on episode 1 of season 2, and the topic of discussion is about red flags. What is the danger in waiting to see how red the flags can get. I'm so happy and privileged to host a super amazing panelists who will help us unpack and explore this topic of discussion. And our guests tonight are Pastor Mueni Wambua and June Katei Reeves, who I will invite to introduce themselves and tell us a bit more of who they are. This is before we get down to the real conversation. And I will start with Pastor Mueni. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Like you said, my name is Mueni Wambua. I am a pastor under the Nairobi Baptist Church. I run a practice called the Anava Healing Center, where I am the lead grief therapist and authenticity coach. What does that all mean? It means that I help people navigate their losses and grief seasons in a manner that does three things: in a manner that is true to who they are, in a manner that is true to their reality, because we all have different realities, in a manner that protects their dignity, because sometimes grief and loss have a way of feeling us stripped of our dignity, and also ultimately in a manner that honors God, because I am convinced that even when we go through loss and grief in our lives, it is still part of the plan, and the plan of God for our lives is not thwarted by the grief that we go through. So it's just to be able to go back and be able to believe that there is still a plan for good and not for evil, to give us a future and a hope. And so that's what I do. And so it's a pleasure to be here tonight. With regards to this conversation, I run a program called The Well, which is a 10-week program for people who have gone through divorce, separation, or are in situationships. Situationships are essentially relationships that are in need of crucial conversation. So I help people navigate that season for the 10 weeks. Yeah. So thank you.
Good.
Thank you for having us tonight, Jenny.
Yeah, good. That was good intro, because I was asking myself, what is authenticity coach? But I think from your explanation, I've gotten to understand. Now, June, karibu, let's get to know you a bit more.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I think I should have gone fast compared to Pastor Mueni. I feel like I have not much to say. Yes, so June Katei Reeves are my names. Born again Christian, love the Lord with all my heart. By profession, I'm in software quality. Yes, I'm a quality assurance chapter lead in a company called Katei. And why am I here? I'm here based on my story that went viral with regards to a broken marriage that only lasted 4 months and found me buying my own rings and paying for my own wedding. And I'm here also just to talk about red flags and just let people know that they need to date wisely. Yeah, like you said, the statistics, like when people are in the honeymoon phase, they are all lovey-dovey and all that. But that dwindles down. There's the drama stage and all that, that is after the honeymoon stage and all that. So yeah, so if we can talk about red flags and educate people to not ignore them, and even be able to get discernment from the Lord with regards to who we date, we would reduce the number of broken marriages in the world. So thank you so much, Jenny.
Wow. Thank you so much, June, for that. Maybe to start us off, I would want maybe Pastor Mueni can tell us what are red flags in a relationship?
You know, Jenny, we talk about red flags, but sometimes it's unfortunate that sometimes we find ourselves just throwing fad words without really thinking what the word means. So I'm glad we begin actually defining what red flags are. Red flags, if you think about even traffic lights, red is always an indicator that we should stop. You know, if you're driving and you find red lights, it means stop. It means stop, and before you move, do not proceed. Now, in a relationship, when we talk of red flags are essentially things that should make us pause and reflect about, and because moving on with that relationship may be emotionally unhealthy. because it indicates that this person that I am with is actually incapable of having a healthy relationship. So a red flag is a pointer to that kind of behavior and that kind of a situation that we may be getting into. Now, unfortunately, oftentimes we don't always see them because nobody walks around waving their red flag. We don't walk around waving them. So sometimes they look, we all start off with white flags. And then slowly the color starts to show up. So sometimes, well, after a period of time, they may actually be red flags, but they start off as white flags, then they become a pale shade of pink and they go on. But some red flags really do show up from the word go. And here is a word of caution. It is important for us to also realize that we see the world as we are, not as it is. What does that mean? Sometimes what we are very quick to call red flags may not necessarily be red flags in terms of the other person, but it may be who we are. And so before we begin to point out red flags in people, it is important for us to actually be very clear, very self-aware, because sometimes when we are not self-aware, we will get into relationships with people and say they have red flags, while what there really is that it is me who has the issue and I am reflecting it on the other person. So if I am not aware of what my issues are, and I have been in 3, 4, 5, 6 relationships, and they all seem to have the same red flag, maybe it's time for me to look at the common denominator in these relationships, which usually is me. And what does that mean? It means that I need to look at what is it about me that resonates with these people who have that kind of behavior. Is there what kind of messaging am I sending out in terms of when I'm looking to date? What kind of messaging am I sending out on my first date? Who am I? Where am I? What is it in me that resonates with people who are dangerous to date?
Wow, that's a really, really good intro, just to start us off to understand the basics of red flags. Maybe getting back to June, you can tell us, maybe when you're getting into this relationship, did you see the red flags?
Honestly, I didn't. As Pastor Mueni has said, when you do not really actually know them until now you are in a number of relationships, then you realize that something is actually off. So when I started this long-term relationship, I was very young. I was 20. So when I was 20, I was very naive and I didn't know. I just wanted to be loved. That, as in, Bora, someone can tell me that they love me, I am good to go. You're beautiful, I am good to go. So I didn't actually spot the red flags. To me, as Pastor Mueni said, they were all white. I've even had an analogy where now people actually call them green flags. And then from green flags, now they start becoming orange. And then from orange, now they go to red based on now the traffic lights. So I didn't notice them at all. And that is why I stayed in that relationship for a very long time. And they continued changing from that white to the pale pink to the red eventually, and they blew up. Yeah.
Okay, we've had what June has said, and initially, so there's something maybe I would want to pass across to Pastor Mueni, because we have the power of the first impression, like when you're getting initially into a relationship, what is the effect of the power of the first impression that it stops you from seeing the red flags while they are very clear. And as June has said, like they started as whites, So what does that really imply, the power of the first impression?
I like what June said, that she just wanted to be loved. Jenny, sometimes it is easy to think because I am thirsty, even sewage water is okay to drink. So I'm going to drink from every cup that is offered to me. But that doesn't mean that because I am thirsty, I drink sewage water, even if you're born again, it will do you harm. So we must begin to find, if I am thirsty, then the first thing that I need to do before I begin to, if I am feeling a need to be loved, this is the you know, sorry, usually when we talk about marriage in the Christian context, we talk of 1 + 1 becoming 1. That's the miracle of marriage in the Christian context. Now, it is important to note that it says 1 + 1, not half plus half. In other words, I come into the marriage full. I need to come into the marriage full. So many times when we are looking for love, we come into marriages and to relationships, for that matter, looking for that person who will complete you. Nobody can complete you. If you're an unhappy single person, you will be unhappy. An unhappy dating person, you will be an unhappy married person. So ultimately, what fills your cup? How do you define love? Because many times, and I see this unfortunately all the time in my program, The Well, I see that many times we all want to be loved. But how many of us actually have ever really thought about what is the definition of love? What does love look like? So those are the conversations that we need to begin to have earlier in life, so that we can be able to know when love shows up, this is what love looks like. So when this shows up, that's not love. Now, when you become self-aware, Jenny, you do not have to go for 10 dates to know that there's a red flag. You will actually be able to know. The more you know yourself, the more you know what you don't want. The more you know what you can live with, the more you know what there is. Now, if you go out on a date the first time and you find the guy has ordered for you not just the meal but even the drink, okay, it's easy for you to translate that and begin to think, wow, he loves me so much. But really, I would say pause. What does that say to you? And so, or if you go, or if a guy takes a girl out on a drink, because this is not a one-sided conversation. If a guy takes a girl out on a drink, on a date, and then when they finish the date, she says, oh, unajua, I don't have rent for this month. Hold up, it's our first date. I am paying rent for you. Is that subscription fees for dating you? So we must begin to realize that relationships have a normal progression. And so we cannot just zoom past. And so those are the conversations that we need to have even before we start getting into relationships. And like June said, she did not know what love was. She just wanted to be loved. Now, her definition of love versus what this guy's definition of love, they were clearly not on the same page.
Yes.
Wow, that's really deep. That's powerful. And to our viewers, if you are joining us now, kindly take note of our topic of discussion. Today is about red flags, and our guests are Pastor Mueni and June Katei. Kindly remember to continue putting your comments, your questions, your experience. Let's make this forum as interactive as possible. And maybe to mention some of the highlights so far that has been mentioned from the discussion, we are told that red flags, they're an indicator of a warning. You know, it means you should stop, there's a problem. And also, as June was sharing, it always starts like our white flags, especially now when you are in love, and the aspect of the first impression. And we are also told that self-aware is also important, to be self-aware, because once you understand yourself and the issues that you have, it will help you to know exactly what you want, where you want to go, and who you want to be with. And it will help you not to point fingers all the time, and maybe the issues even could start, you could start addressing the issues from you. And the more you know yourself, the more you know exactly what you want. And no one can complete you. As you get into a relationship, you get as a complete person, the other person as a complete person, because no one can complete you. So maybe getting back to June now. At that point when now you started maybe seeing the red flags, were there any actions that you took, or what exactly? Okay, where did the rubber hit the road now and your eyes got opened?
So the rubber hit the road twice. The first time it hit after we were together for 9 years, and we called it off. We called our relationship off, and we took a break. But then again, you go out here, you meet other people, you think that better the devil that I know. Is that the saying, better the angel or better the devil that I know than the people who are out here? So again, I found myself in that relationship again, ignoring the red flags that were there that broke us up at the first time after 9 years. So after him coming back to my life, that's when we got married officially. Since I had rededicated my life to God, and I knew that I did not want to continue with the cohabiting situation. So we got married, but unfortunately, if you do not deal with the issues that you have inside you, and also if you do not deal with the issues that are in your relationship, it definitely will crumble. A wedding does not make the marriage or the relationship flourish. It doesn't. So that's how it crumbled again after another 4 months after the wedding. So it hit the rubber twice. I usually tell myself I should have still worked on myself after the first separation, after the first breakup. But again, as Pastor Mueni said, I wasn't aware. And I also dealt with the pain in a bad way. I resorted to a lot of partying and drinking to numb my pain, instead of now sitting down and asking myself a question, June, again, what is love? Why did you even get into this relationship in the first place? Why were you together? Yeah, what are the issues that have now brought you guys to break up? So I didn't do that, and he didn't do that as well. And that's how we came to find ourselves together, because it was like, this is familiar. This, even though there are red flags, this is familiar. So I'd rather stay in my familiar. Yes, and again, it broke off again. Yeah.
Okay. There's something I would want Pastor Mueni to address from what you have shared, because most of the times we are told, I can use the Swahili term about kuvumilia, and you can see that how it costed her the first time, and then she got in there. So maybe I should I put this question across. Once you notice the warning signs of red flags in your partner, do you proceed with a caution, or do you cut things off? Pastor Mueni.
Sorry, Jenny, I had a bit of a network challenge there. Please repeat the question.
Okay. From what June has said, she saw the red flags, and even then after she left, she considered it's better the devil she knows than the angel she does not know. So she went back again, and things became worse from her experience. So the question that I was putting across to you, when you notice the warning signs of red flags in your partner, what are the action points? Okay, do you proceed with a caution, or do you cut things off?
Jenny, we have what we call yellow flags, and then we have what we call red flags. Yellow flags are things that you can negotiate, you can discuss, and maybe the person is aware of these issues and they are working on them. So yellow flags are not necessarily a reason to cut the relationship off. Now, red flags are reasons to cut the relationship off. And so when you see a red flag, and red flags are actually more universal. Red flags in Kenya will be red flags in the US. And this includes things like violence. There is no way to sugarcoat violence in whichever culture or country that we exist in. So we must begin to look at, again, what is it how do we define love? Jenny, it is said that people who grew up in abusive homes are 75% more likely to either get into abusive relationships as abusers or get into abusive relationships where they become the abused. Now, that means that when we are growing up in the ages of 0 to 18 years, those are the pretty formative years of the life of a young person. And in those years, this person begins to get the scripting of what life becomes. And so after the age of 25, which is the age in which the brain of a human being is fully developed, what happens is we already have our scripting done. Now that means that when I encounter an incident today, I pull out a filter from my past and bring it to the fore and translate that incident based on my filter. In other words, if I grew up in an abusive relationship and my mother told me ndoa ni kuvumiliana, there is going to be a part of me that believes being beaten is being loved. He beats me because he loves me. And you've had people who say that if a man does not beat you, then he's a weak man. If a woman does not provoke you, then she does not love you enough. And so we have all these socializations that begin to make and normalize toxicity. And so, interesting enough, on the inside of us is an intrinsic knowledge that there's something wrong here. And what we do, like Jenny said, she numbed that voice. We run away from that voice. We shut down that voice in different ways. And society does not necessarily encourage us to act on that voice. So we have statements that normalize toxicity in relationships. Ndoa ni kuvumiliana. If it rains in your house, it rains everywhere. If it rains in your house, that's not a reason to move houses. But my question is, if you're in a relationship that does not bring out the best in you, that you're not bringing out the best in your partner, what are you doing there? He does not want the best. He does not want to see the best version of Mueni, and I do not want to see the best version of him. What are we doing there? What are we doing to each other? We are possibly destroying each other. And if you're with someone that is diseased, why are you staying?
Mm-hmm. That's a very, very good question, Pastor Mueni. I think you have frozen. You will come back once you are able. Maybe before then, I can read some few comments. Thank you so much once again, our viewers. And well, I can see one comment from Vivian, who is saying, what about psychological and emotional? How do you handle that? I think when Pastor Mueni comes back, she'll be able to respond to that. She has dropped, but I'm sure she'll be back in a while. Okay, so as she comes, before she comes back, I would like to throw this question to June and ask, what do you think took you long to recognize, or rather to ignore the red flags? So you said the red flags were there, and maybe you can tell us first, what are the major red flags that you saw or to look out for from your experience?
From my experience, I would say that the major red flag I got was disrespect. And I am glad Pastor Mueni is back, because I would like to ask her a question. But before I ask her that question, the ndoa ni kuvumilia, I had it a lot from my friends, from my family, from basically everyone, and everyone would say your couple goals. So when you feel your couple goals, you continue with the couple goals, and you ignore everything else. But when you go back to your house, you are not couple goals. So ndoa ni kuvumilia, that I did it a lot, and that's how I found myself 9 years in it. Again, also, I think psychologically, when you find yourself in a long-term relationship, you don't want to leave easily. Like if you've put in 5 years, you're like, what? I'm gonna leave 5 years and start all over from scratch. It feels like you have lost a lot, like you have lost 5 years of your life. So like for me, they were very red when we were 5 years into it, but I still didn't walk out. I actually took an elastoplast. Like you have a wound, I took an elastoplast and put it on top of the wound. The wound did not heal, it just continued, but it was there. And the elastoplast was in form of, for example, my child. So I got pregnant in order to see if my husband, my ex-husband, can now be financially, can now provide for the family. Because I was like, if I get a child, it will trigger in his head that he needs to provide. Unfortunately, that did not happen, and the cycle continued. So another one is financial abuse. If you see someone not providing for you, and they're not even bothered. There are seasons in life where maybe someone has lost a job, or their business has gone down and all that, and you actually support, you come as a family and support each other as a couple, sorry. But the one that it is Netflix every day and you leave your wife to do everything, very big red flag. Yeah.
Welcome back, Pastor Mueni. You can hear us now? Okay, I think she still has issues.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, you can. Oh, good.
I can hear
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yes. Now, there are some comments I wanted to read, so that if there's any you can respond to, you respond to, then we can go back to what June also has shared. We have Watere Gadhuru, who is saying, this is very interesting. We have to define what love is and what it looks like to us. Thank you so much, Watere, for that comment. Olenjoka, we have heard from June that all she wanted was to be loved, and at very tender age. All flags were green, but the innocence compromised. Pastor Mueni, would you say there's a gap that the church or society should seal? And how, in your view, can this be addressed? You can respond to that first.
Jenny, at the risk of sounding like I am bashing the church, one of the biggest challenges for churches today is the utmost dismissal of emotions. And we, the subtle messaging, and sometimes not so subtle messaging that we get from churches, is that emotions are evil, emotions are bad, emotions are flaky, so run away from them. In fact, have nothing to do with emotions at all times. And because we are spiritual beings, emotions should not have any role in our lives. But a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, Irene Moredi keeps asking, if emotions are evil, why is it that the Lord Jesus Christ would define himself by the emotion love? Then it means that emotions are such a pivotal point in our lives. And so we ultimately must get in touch with our emotions. And what happens is that the church, no, let me not say the church, religion has
Sorry for the connection.
Has enabled what we would call cognitive dissonance. So that's that.
Pastor Mueni seems to be having a bit of a challenge there. Yeah, but I know we will have her back. Sorry for that, Pastor Mueni. Maybe you can proceed if you can hear me. Okay, as she fixes her connectivity, maybe just to our viewers who are still joining us, remember our topic today is about red flags and the danger of ignoring the red flags. And our guests, Pastor Mueni and June Reeves, who are sharing their experiences and the knowledge they have. And maybe before Pastor Mueni gets back, and this question, I would throw it to June and just get to ask. You've mentioned over the red flags that you got to see, when did it get now to you and you said enough is enough, because now we are told, okay, for these yellow flags and then you get to red, yeah? So did you still stay even the red flags were so red, or what, at what point and what influenced you now to say enough is enough? And maybe you can share a bit of your experience around that, because I know you have a bit of a story, maybe even of how you really got to organize your wedding and do things for yourself.
Yes, so when I said enough was enough, the red flags, first of all, at some point they had started becoming yellow. When someone sees that you do not want to be with them again, or you're in discussions in your relationship and things feel like you're going the breakup way. So some people, okay, in this case, my ex-husband starts working on whatever that was ailing us. Yeah. So the red started becoming yellowish, but now it gets to a point where there's some comfort, and then the yellow now starts becoming, is it brighter or darker when it's going to red? So, and then now they become red. And that's what I explained that led to the first breakup. So the first breakup was when there was a lot of physical violence, and I remember just one night I broke it off completely. Like I completely broke it off, and I told him to leave. He left, and after leaving, that's where we stayed apart for 2 years. As I said, unfortunately, we didn't deal with those red flags that were the issues in our marriage during those 2 years. So when we got back together, in my head, I thought that now things would be different. We have been apart for 2 years. We have experienced, even him, he said, dating out here is the ghetto. So now coming back to now this familiar environment is actually better. So I thought that now would be at a better position, and being that I love this famous saying, try again, this time, but with Jesus. So I knew that this time I'm trying it with Jesus, it must work, it must work. But unfortunately, it didn't. And again, I think I really ignored God in that aspect, because God was really speaking during that time. But I was really ignoring him, because he would point out the red flags, and I would be like, no, God, you can change people. I know I can't, but I know you can change him. Yeah, so unfortunately, he didn't change. And I went on with it. Again, mwanamke ni kuvumilia. When you reach out to your mentor couple, when you reach out to church, they tell you, June, mwanamke ni kuvumilia. So vumilia. So I vumiliad. And we got married. After we got married, things didn't change. Things still didn't change. Even after opening businesses for him, things still didn't change. The laziness was still there. Yeah. And I would still provide, and there was still emotional abuse. There was no communication. We had no communication. Right now, when I think of it, I wonder how we even got married when there was no communication. And also a lot of physical abuse. So the moment you start pointing out something, like for example, you point out something to them, that we need to be doing this in this certain project, it turns into an anger issue, and that anger issue turns into a blow. You've been hit. And unfortunately, my daughter saw all this, and she had to go to therapy for that as well. I also had to go for therapy after the marriage broke. So that's when I completely broke it off. And I won't lie, I broke it off after I realized there was someone else in the picture. Actually, if I didn't realize there was someone else in the picture, I think the relationship I would still be in that relationship right now. So to me, it was an answered prayer from God that he was like, June, do you want to die there? Do you want to die from both the emotional and physical? So to me, that was like, I keep on saying, to me, that was an answered prayer to wake me up and let me know that, June, you're not fine in this situation, even though you went and did a church wedding. Yeah, and maybe to answer Olenjoka, when he was talking about the comment on the innocence, and he was asking about the society should see it. I think as parents, we really need to be intentional. I keep on saying I was naive because I learned through relationships and sex through what are they called, TV programs. And during my time, that's when there were all these soap operas, and also all these people, Alejandro and the bold and the beautiful. So that is what gave me a definition of what relationships are. So when you go to the world now and you start dating with the concept or the notion of whatever you've been watching on TV, that is definitely a different, what is it called? A different view on love, a different view on what you want. So you go there, get there, even giving other people pressure of being Alejandros, and them themselves are not even half of an Alejandro. Yeah. So I think also intentional parenting, we really need to be, and I'm a mother now, I know that I really need to be intentional to let even my daughter know what love is, what a relationship entails, what are red flags. Like she should not accept violence, should not accept to be emotionally abused. So even parenting comes in a space where we need to work as a society.
Thank you so much, June, for sharing that. Welcome back, Pastor Mueni. So sorry for the challenges that are going on, but we shall still pull through. There's something before you drop that you're trying to explain. Maybe I can allow you to finish.
Zeni, I think we're talking about what the red flags that we should look out for.
Yes.
When I dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of the red flags that we should look out for in relationships are things like addictions. Now, it's very easy for us to think of addictions only in terms of substances, in terms of alcohol, in terms of chemical that alter our emotions. But you know, we are actually living in a world when we have a lot of behavior addictions. So you find that we are having people who are addicted to porn, you know, people who are addicted to gaming, people who are addicted to masturbation, people who are addicted to shopping. You know, people who, we even have people, you know, we even the human mind is amazing in its capacity to develop addictions. So we even have people who are addicted to church journey. So you find that you're in church on Monday to Sunday, and you're not a pastor and you're not an employee of the church. There is a problem. You know, as a pastor, I probably want to know, what is it that you're running away from? You know, every kesha you want to be part of, every mission you want to be part of, there is a problem if you have a relationship, if there's a home that you need to be part of, or a life that you need to be part of, and that you're running away from. So essentially, addictions are things that are not, off by themselves, are not necessarily bad things, but they are things that we are running to because there's something that we are running away from. So we find we have a lot of addictive behaviors, and more continue to emerge. And so those are also things that we should look out for. And sometimes when we look at addictions in this society, oftentimes we begin to praise them. You know, oh, she works so hard. She works all the time. He works so hard. It could be an indicator that there's a work, or it is an addiction to work. And so what is it that you're running away from? Yeah. So we also have spoken about violence. That is a red flag. We have mismatched relationship goals. For instance, and people, when people are in relationships, these things are mentioned, but we gloss over them. Yeah. So if someone says, I don't want to have children, I will never have children, I have vowed to never have children, but you still go ahead and date them, believing that I will change them, you know, or you find someone that my primary value is family and their primary value is fun and to travel the world. So you find that we really do have unmatched goals, and so that's important for us to actually have those difficult conversations. Another common red flag is jealousy and distrust. Now, sometimes at the early stages of distrust and jealousy, it actually looks like, oh, they love me so much. They call me all the time to find out where I am. They call me all the time to find out where I'm doing. But if you uncover that, you will find an insecure partner and an underlying control problem. So it's not good attention. It's not good generosity. It is control. It is desperate insecurity. Another red flag is constant infidelity. You know, relationships require trust to succeed. Now, if your partner has a history of infidelity, please proceed with caution. You know, if you're, now there are people who say they're not bothered by this, but again, if you say you're not bothered by this, I would want to explore, why are you not bothered by this? What feeds that belief that it's not a problem? Again, if I am a believer of monogamy and he or she is not a believer of monogamy, then we are not going to be able to go far together. We have another red flag is people who have no friends. Let me tell you, Jenny, and this is a big one. We all are products of relationships. Now, it's one thing for me it's one thing for me to be an introvert. However, you should find that someone has friends. They should be a sort of, if I grew up in an estate, I probably will have one or two friends from my childhood. I probably will have one or two friends from primary school. I probably will have one or two friends from high school. I probably will have one or two friends from college. If I have worked in 5 places, I probably will have one or two friends from the previous places I have worked. I probably will have one or two relatives who is a friend. Now, there are people you meet and they have no friendships. They have known you for 5 years and you're the oldest friend that they have in their life. That is an indicator of an inability to sustain relationships. And that should actually be a clue. Because guess what, Jenny? Relationships, by the way, are for adults. Relationships are hard work. Most of the time, our dating relationships ideally should lead to marriage. Now, marriage is hard work. In fact, marriage is a series of difficult conversations. Marriage is a series of difficult issues that need to be handled. So if you're not able to have difficult conversations with the person that you're relating with, there is a problem. That is a very big red flag. You should be able to be vulnerable. You should be able to have difficult conversations. You should be able to have uncomfortable conversations and you should be able to have conversations that you can decide, here we disagree, without being disagreeable. We should be able to we should be able to, even now we are going into a politics season. My husband and I should be able to say, you know what, I support Camp X in this election. And my husband says, I support Camp Y. And he doesn't have to beat me for having a different political view. He doesn't have to beat me. You know, now, if I am in a dating relationship and I'm being beaten because I do not support the football team that my husband supports and I support a different football team, there is a problem. Our relationships should be comfortable enough for me to show up as I fully and truly am and still be loved. Now, if I show up as I fully and truly am and I am not loved, I have to shrink parts of myself, or I have to contort parts of myself, or I have to play down. And I know a lot of women say this, that sometimes we shrink ourselves so that the man does not feel threatened. If you have to do that in any relationship that you're in, there is a problem. Ask yourself, what is going on in this relationship? So those are some of the things that are red flags. Another red flag is they give you all their time. You know, I am busy, I am at work, I am doing what I need to do, and they are there waiting for me, wondering, when are you going to finish? How are you going to finish? No, each party should have a sense of self. You know, you should have a sense of self. If I mean, and it is nice to spend time with the person that you love, but there's a difference between bonding and bondage. Does the person have capacity for emotional intimacy? Does the person have capacity to open up? Does the person have capacity to actually be vulnerable? Because vulnerability is such a key a key thing in marriage and in relationships. I should be able to be vulnerable to the person that I love. Now, it is, unfortunately, the irony of this generation is that I will give you I'll give you the password for my Facebook account. I will not give you the password for my Facebook account. I'll not give you my WhatsApp. You'll not have access to any of my Twitter, my social media accounts, but we are sleeping together. You know, so it is, or you cannot access I will not give you my ATM. You know, so I'm giving you all these parts of me that are not important, that are external. I'm not giving you parts of me that are external, but the me who is my body, my personhood, I am giving that to you. I think it's time for us to reevaluate our relationships. It's important for us to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be vulnerable to one another? And what is intimacy? Again, we're living in a time where we just throw words, you know, oh, I am pursuing intimacy, but it is only up to a certain level. You know, in the book of Genesis, we read of they were naked and not ashamed. Do our relationships, and I'm not here talking about premarital sex, but I'm asking, do our relationships allow us to be naked and not ashamed?
Wow, key points there, Pastor Mueni. And I think many of the things that we overlook, you know, and one of the things that we've mentioned about addiction and several points around addiction, not just drugs and all that. And then I think another second key that you've mentioned is about mismatched relationship goals, because that's one thing, again, I think many of us do not look around that area. Jealousy and distrust, and then constant infidelity. Then someone who has no friends, you should really question yourself, you know, why they are at that space while they are social being. And then because they are not able to sustain relationship. And also when you are in a space where you are not able to be yourself, you shrink before your partner, there is a problem that you need to reevaluate your relationship as well. These are key points that Pastor Mueni has shared. And also differentiate between bonding and bondage. You know, when somebody wants to be around you all the time, you know, they are there. Don't mistake it for love, or but yeah, just get those 2 points, bonding and bondage. And also she has mentioned of the key and importance of communication, and also vulnerability, and also intimacy. And maybe around that area, just to respond to one question, Pastor Mueni, June had mentioned, one of the things that she went through was financial abuse. And somebody has asked a viewer, would you say, okay, this was to June, would you say you being the provider played a major role in him being abusive?
Yes, I would say so. And also, I realized when a man does not have something to his name or something that he's bringing on the table, they become very insecure. So when they become insecure, they turn to other aspects now to kind of maybe make you cow down, for example, make you cow down. So when you become like, now you're the breadwinner in the house, and it's like you've gone above them. And I know there are situations and families out there where the woman is the provider and everything is fine. And yeah, even the guy is also bringing his part and all that. But in our situation, there was a lot of insecurity. He was very, very insecure, to the point of that when I point out that we need to do something, that we need to open a biashara, that we need to do something in order to at least elevate the family, it would turn to, first of all, starting with verbal abuse, then from verbal, now it escalates to physical abuse. So yeah, I would say yes, Jenny.
Okay, a lot of insecurity there. And there's also a question to you. I think this is also very important. June, looking back,
Yes.
what would you have done differently? And at what point would you have done it?
I should not have taken that elastoplast, as I said, and put it on top of the wound. I shouldn't have done that. I should have head on realized that now, okay, it's 5 years into the relationships, and now things have turned from white to pale pink and to red, and I should have walked out at that point. I should have told him that now, yes, I've seen this is happening, this is a red flag, you're not stepping up to what I would like us to be. Like, we had those mismatched goals. Now at least I know how to call them. Thank you, Pastor Mueni. So now I'd be like, I would have told him that I know we are not on the same page. Can we take a break and see if we can get on the same page, maybe work from the red to yellow and go back to white, and maybe things would have changed at that point. But unfortunately, mwanamke ni kuvumilia, so nilivumilia and I put elastoplast on top,
which costed you a lot by doing that.
Yes.
And it's good, is a lesson learned.
Yes.
And maybe some few comments also. Thank you, Rose. Bye. I agree, our lenses informs our choices. Self-awareness is very important. She's commenting on what Pastor Mueni had said. And there's also Vivian who was asking, what about psychological and emotional? How do you handle that? I don't know whether you get that question, Pastor Mueni. I think they all aspects of psychological and emotional reaction to that.
I am going to hazard a guess and assume that the person is asking about emotional and psychological abuse. My question is, my comment on that would be, it's a much deeper conversation because of the psychological direction of that. But I would say this: does your relationship feel safe? The primary needs of every person are safety, security, and identity. Does your relationship feel safe? If your relationship does not feel safe in any way, in any dimension, whether it is physically, where you're being abused physically, whether it is emotionally, whether it is even intellectually, whether it is financially, whether it is spiritually, is it safe enough for you to own yourself and your beliefs in those dimensions? If it does, if your relationship does not make it possible for you to own yourself in those dimensions, then there is a problem. You need to look further into that. And this includes even, we are in a time when we have a lot of intercultural relationships. Even the fact that your relationship does not feel safe enough for you to have your cultural practices. And the cultural practices that we have are not necessarily harmful. You know, I am from Moranga. I like waru, you know, but I am not allowed to cook waru in my house. There's a problem. You know, there's nothing dangerous about waru apart from the gym part of things. But, you know, essentially there are certain practices that are defined by our culture that are not necessarily harmful. They just are. I like mokimo. There's nothing wrong with it. On the other hand, I may be Kikuyu and I hate mokimo. My relationship should be safe enough for me to actually say, I don't like mokimo, without being told, in this house we cook mukimo on Monday night, so you either eat it or you figure yourself out. We should be safe enough for me to be able to say, I don't like mukimo. I don't know how to make mukimo. Our relationships should be safe places. Our relationships should be places where we can fully show up as ourselves. And who we are, we include strengths and we have weaknesses.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for that, Pastor Mueni. Maybe let me just read 2 comments. I think Vivian is really resonating with you, June. Anasema tu akiwachia hapo, you are reading someone's script. Watere, thank you so much. He says, show me a man's friend and I will tell you what kind of a man he is, which is very true. Vivian, oh my, they normally break up as soon as they finish with them. After manipulation, unanifungua macho leo. Many people are learning a lot from the discussion. Yeah, people who have no friends, that's a red flag, very true, inability to sustain relationship. Thank you so much, Rose. And she's commenting on June. June, you become your ex-husband's character enabler. Yeah, so wow, I think that's very, very deep, very good lessons that you are learning today. And I can see time is really, really going. So maybe as we plan to wrap up, I would want Pastor Mueni, advice that you can give. I know there are people out there who are in that space at the moment. And many of the people, and mostly the women, as June was saying, Unajua, you've been told about, not just, take more time, stay, and we've seen even what is happening. Maybe after that, there's the issue of violence, even people getting to a point of just killing, all that. So where do we draw the line, So you can give us advice as far as that is it's concerned, especially for people who are in that space currently, and they don't know even what to do, where to go, and all that. Maybe you can give your advice, then June will also chip in from her experience.
The first thing that I would ask you to do is find someone to talk to. Find someone to talk to. Find a therapist, find a trusted friend. We have people that we can talk to, whether it is in church, whether it is in all county hospitals have therapists available. Most churches have counselors available. Reach out to Jenny of SADREF. I'm sure she will be giving you her details later on, or see a therapist. Just find someone to talk to begin with, and then begin to have an exit plan. If you're not working and you're relying on this person financially, begin to find a way in which you can generate an income. Begin to find a way in where is it that I can go to. Some of the relationships we are in are not necessarily dangerous physically, but they are dangerous emotionally. So begin to find places that you can begin to, especially when there are children involved. When there are children involved, you want to be a bit more, you want to be very, very, you want to try as much as possible for that transition to have as minimal disturbance and upheaval for the children. However, even as I say that, it is also important to note that even when there are children involved, whereas sometimes we will say, I'm staying in a bad relationship for the sake of the children, it is not necessarily good for the children for them to be in a relationship where their mother, where their father is being talked to badly every day, is being beaten every day. So even though many times we may think where there are children involved, we stay on, I say, do the best thing for your children, because children are very perceptive and their opinions of the world, their scripting is being done by the space that they're in. So what kind of an atmosphere are we creating for our children? And it is important as parents to realize that our children really need to be protected in that respect. Number 3, I would say, even as you make an exit plan, even as you exit and get a job and begin to find your bearing on the other end, I would say, even after you have gotten out of that relationship, please still get help. Get a therapist to help you, because you need to heal before you go into a next relationship, whether it is a program like Divorce Care, whatever it is, you need to understand, even for yourself, what is it about you that made you continue to stay in a bad relationship? Maybe it is what is it that resonates in you with a bad relationship? What is it about you that made you get into this relationship too fast? You know, a statement I've had said often on social media and Jenny is, anakukimbiza kama nduthi ya kuibiwa. No, relationships should move slowly. If I come into your house, I will first come into the sitting room. I will stay in the sitting room for a while before I am allowed to access your kitchen, before I'm allowed to access your bathroom, before I'm allowed to access your bedroom. There are certain relationships that don't even get into the sitting room. We finish with each other at the balcony. So relationships should have a pace in which they are moving, and that pace with which a relationship is moving is actually determined by myself and not by the other person. And so we should begin to look at our boundaries, redefine our boundaries, so that, because if we don't do these things, if we don't do the work that we need to do on ourselves, we will find ourselves in the same relationship again, just that it will be the same man, only that he will have a different face and wearing different clothes. We must begin to start deciding, if I want to date a different man, then I need to look at myself. Why am I attracting the same kind of man? Or why am I attracting the same kind of woman?
Wow. Wow, that's very key for someone who is currently going through the kind of situation that we have discussed. Look for someone to talk to, begin to have an exit plan, get therapy, and finally just get to redefine your boundaries. That's very key. June, what would you advise the viewers?
Yeah, Pastor Mueni has said it all. I would add on the divorce care program. For example, that program, in my case, I saw guys joining it even when they were unsure if they want to leave a relationship or not. Because when you're in a relationship and again, you are blinded and you just want to stay there, this is your comfort zone and all that. So I've seen divorce care where people have joined divorce care, and after the 13 or 14 weeks, they're able to decide if, do I really want to stay in this relationship or not? Because again, divorce care looks at someone in depth. So that is just one option, apart from now the therapy and all that. So anyone maybe in that situation can consider programs like that, even the programs from SADREF Jenny as well. So to just evaluate yourself and see, as in, why am I leaving? Am I even what is actually ailing us that much that maybe I want to leave? Yeah, maybe it can be something that can be resolved or not, or maybe it cannot be resolved, so I actually need to leave, especially where there's a lot of violence, both emotional and physical. Therapy helped me a lot, and I would tell anyone to embrace therapy and embrace it like immediately you leave a relationship. These stages of grief, the moment a relationship, even if you're the one who has left, you are affected by that loss. You are affected by, and then there's a lot of denial, especially during the first few weeks or months after you have left. There's a lot of denial, like, maybe I should call that person and just go back there. Yet you know they are bad for you, but now your mind is playing with you that the denial just kicks in and you may want to go back there. So if someone embraces therapy, even immediately or even before they leave, it would really help them to be strong for when they leave, they are able to deal with that loss. Because ideally, you actually feel that loss. You feel that loss, your children feel the loss. So they all need to go through a certain program so that they can embrace it and know how to work around that particular loss. They say that divorce is harder than death. I've even had people say that, because with a divorce or separation, that person is still alive. They're still alive. They are somewhere, maybe they're even sending you texts, they are sending you things, and there's a lot of back and forth and all that. So it's even more harder to get over that than someone who's buried 6 feet under, because you know that person is completely done. So therapy really helps a lot to be able to just work around all that situation and just get a footing on the way forward with regards to their life, and also to redefine themselves. I think when we get into relationships, if you didn't know yourself and you get into a relationship, you get lost in there and you start knowing yourself as Mrs. Somebody. And when you're no longer Mrs. Somebody, you feel completely lost. You're like, who are you now? I do not know myself. So after a separation or a divorce, it's good to now stand back and like ask, who am I? Who am I? Katei Reeves, apart from my job and having a child and everything else. Who am I? Who am I? Not even to get into another relationship, I need to rediscover myself and know who I am. So those are the kind of some of the things that people can do when they are in and trying to get out and after getting out.
Wow, thank you very much. Therapy. And also just getting to programs that can help you. Pastor Mueni, you had your hand up?
Yes, just one more thing to say, Jenny. It is important for us to find, outside of therapy, it's very important for us to find support systems, people that will understand and support your journey. When you're getting out of a relationship, people that will understand and support you in that new space that you're getting into. Because sometimes we stay in toxic spaces because the people around us are not supportive of our decisions and therefore make us self-second guess. Now, it is important to note that when you're in a relationship and you're getting out, and that relationship has been toxic, it leaves you with a very broken sense of self, and therefore, even making a simple decision is a struggle. So when someone second makes you question your decision, it is very easy for you to jump back into the relationship and say, let me stay here. But if you have a supportive group around you, a supportive system around you, if it is, can you move back home to your parents? Can you move in with a friend? Can a friend, and sometimes it is also important to realize that our needs are not necessarily financial. So yes, I can afford to rent myself a new house, but do I even have the confidence to enter into an agreement with a caretaker and feel like they will not exploit me? Do I have the confidence to show up in church now that I am separated? Do I have the confidence to show up with my friends now that I am separated? Do I have the confidence to show up in my kids' school as a separated parent, and to just have a supportive system around us, because it can be a very difficult journey. It can be a very lonely journey. And without friends without a support system, sometimes it's our family, sometimes it's our friends, but without a supportive system that will help us navigate that journey, it can be very, very destabilizing, and it can be very incapacitating.
Wow, thank you so much for that emphasis on support system. Yes, as we get ready to wind up, we get ready with our parting shot from our guests. Maybe let me read 2-3 comments here from Councillor Naomi Ngugi, who is saying, as a society, we must continue to change that kuvumilia narrative. We need to learn more on saving a life and not saving a relationship. Thank you, Kate Mimi, for joining in. And she says the topic so lovely. The red flags we all hope will turn green. Yeah. Okay, Robert Joseph, bonding versus bondage. Nice one. Benedict, wow, this is so informative. Thanks, June, for sharing your life. Thank you for being vulnerable enough, June. And Emilio Mondi saying this is very, very informative. From Kate Mimi, she says exactly, what is it about you that made you get into that relationship? This right here is the elephant in the room. Yeah, so they are agreeing with that. Yeah, it has been a very, very, very good discussion. I've really benefited. I've really learned a lot myself, and even just to thank our viewers once again. As we bring this to a wrap, I would want to have a parting shot, maybe starting with you, June, then we go to Pastor Mueni.
My parting shot is put God first in everything, in that relationship. If someone is in a relationship, they're trying to get out, pray, go to God and ask him, what does he think about even you live in that relationship? When you want to get into a new relationship and maybe you're not able to see those red flags, ask God for discernment Yeah, to be able to open your eyes and not look at the lovey-dovey or the dates and the nice chocolates, and especially now that Valentine is approaching. So yeah, so putting God first in everything that we do, and even in the relationships that we get into. If we put God first, I think he will sort out the rest. Yeah, and our relationships will actually thrive.
Thank you for that, June. God first. Pastor Mueni?
Jenny, I would say that we need to realize that not every, that while we are very quick to throw stones and talk about how every divorce is sinful, not every divorce is sinful, but at the core of every divorce, there is sin. There is someone who walked away from the original plan. There's someone who's walked away from God. Allow me to quote 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 1 to 5, which says, "But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power." Have nothing to do with such people. We must begin to call a spade a spade. We must begin to call bad behavior out, because the Bible does state bad behavior. We must have nothing to do with such people. And there will be people who say that this does not apply to marriage. But my question is, and I'm a believer of marriage, by the way. I am a believer that marriage should be for life. But I am not a believer that God would have us stay in a marriage that devalues us on a daily basis so that we do not look bad. I do not believe that speaks to the heart of God. I do not believe that speaks to who our God is. And so much as we are able to say marriage should not be entered into lightly, divorce is also not to be entered into lightly. No one is going to enter divorce lightly. People do not walk out of marriages because I lost his handkerchief or she burnt rice. No, but we must be able to walk out of relationships that are not honoring God. It does not honor God for us to be on the receiving end of toxic relationships. But before we begin to call relationships toxic, we must be able to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, are we toxic people? We must do it. It's a double work. Do the work on yourself, and then you'll have clarity on what you're getting into and what you're getting out of. Sometimes we need to see the log we need to see the log in our eye before we point out the specks in others. But once you see the speck in another person, be able to call it out. Truth will set us free.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Wow. Maybe you can mention, Pastor Mueni, where people can find you. Maybe you mentioned programs. Maybe you have a page, a website, or books, something like that, so that now the viewers can get in touch with you.
You can reach me on Twitter or Facebook, Mueni Wambua, or you can reach me on Instagram as Mr. Authenticity. Those are the spaces that you can reach me on. I have been on a Facebook break, but we are coming to the end of the month of January, so I will be back on Facebook in the month of February, so you can reach me on Facebook as well. And you can reach me through Sadref. If you reach out to Jenny and you want to reach out to me, I am sure Jenny will be able to give you my details.
Yes, yes. Wow, thank you very much. June, how can you be reached? Maybe there's somebody who would want to talk to you.
Yeah, on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, my names are June Katei Reeves everywhere. So if you just search, right now, even on Google, when you just search June Katei Reeves, you'll just get to follow me on any of the platforms and message me, and I'll be able to respond. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you so much for that. My parting shot as we come to an end, a red flag is an indicator of the character flaws you will need to learn to live with in the long term if this person becomes your life partner. You can feel compassion for your dating partner because ultimately we all suffer our own character flaws and none of us is perfect. The real question is whether you can still love this person despite their character flaws. If their character flaws prove beyond fixing. If the answer is yes, move forward. If the answer is no, move on. Wow. Now, Pastor Mueni, pray for us so that we can be released. Thank you very much.
Let's pray. Our Father, Lord, you're a good God, you're a good Father. Your word tells us that you ordained the days of our lives, and every one of them, before they came to be, you wrote them out. Lord, your word also tells us that there's sufficient grace for us that is available. And so, Lord, would we be those that are aware that in you there is a good plan. In you there is no condemnation. And that, Father, you are not a God that is going to be the God that wants us to be in places where we are broken, because you came so that we may be whole. You're not going to be the God that allows us to be in places where we are going to be receiving woundedness daily, because you came to bind up woundedness. But Father, you're also not going to allow us to be in places where lies are there, because you are not the author of lies. Lies have a father, and he is not you. And so, Lord, we pray that we may be those that walk in desiring truth, truth that liberates, truth that dignifies, truth that restores, truth that heals, truth that renews, and truth that rejuvenates. Father, we pray that your word will enter into our lives and illuminate those areas of our lives that are in darkness, those areas of our lives that need to be brought into light, those areas in our lives that need to be brought in the truth of your light, O Lord, so that healing and restoration can begin to happen in those areas, O Lord. And Father, we know that in you is a good plan for us. In you is a plan to give us a future and a hope. And that plan cannot be thwarted. And so, Father, we find our comfort, we find our strength, we find our reassurance, and we find our courage in knowing that that plan remains. And so, Lord, I pray that we may be those that are going to walk in wisdom and in truth and in courage, Lord, because your word tells us that you are the God that will teach us to number our days aright, to number our days aright in our relationships, to number our days aright in our everyday walk, that we may acquire a heart of wisdom on a daily basis and get wisdom for daily living now and evermore. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor Mueni. For our viewers, we have ongoing programs under SADREF. We have legal awareness on family law. Kindly check on our website, on our pages, so that you can sign up. And also we have a program on healing the wounded heart, and also counseling going on. You can reach on us to us through the contacts given. Until next month, the last Friday of the month, I've been your host, Jenny Washira. Have a good night. Be blessed.